mathematics, grade 12. So grade 11, you were taught the normal simple interest, compound interest, those formulas. And you were taught depreciation with the simple interest and compound interest formulas, which just changed to a minus. So that was grade 11. The main difference when you're reading a sum that you should take note of is when I start telling you that there is more than one amount that's happening here. So in grade 11, there was one amount. Even when you did timelines, there was one amount. I said, say for instance, the guy deposited 50,000 and it was there in the bank for 3 months. Then he went and he withdrew some money, and after 6 years he put some more money in. You did timelines, 3 sums, but in each of those 3 sums there was one amount that stayed there for 3 months, and stayed there for 6 years, and stayed there until the end. Each of the sums had one amount. So that's something crucial to remember when you're doing your financial maths. So when you are in a sum and it starts saying something like you are making installments of 200 Rand a month for the next 4 years or the next 6 years or whatever, that means that there's regular money being paid, installments, payments, amounts being paid. Then you must know you're busy with grade 12. So I'm writing the formulas down for you so that you've got them all down there. So when you are saving, F, the new formula, stands for?
Future value.
Okay, so you're working towards the future. So the moment that you start putting money in the bank, as an annuity, as a savings account, as a, what else is there? Okay, I'll get to some more names. But if you're putting money in there and it's getting more and more interest on it for the future, you're busy with the F sum for the future. In this future sum, there's only one thing that you don't understand or don't know until now, and that is X. And what is X?
Monthly payment.
X are your installments. And it doesn't have to be monthly, but more people usually do their finances per month. But it could be quarterly, especially big companies might do their something like if you're paying towards an alarm company, you might decide, let's do it every 3 months, we'll pay them, and they're happy with that. So that would be different. But normally when you save money or when you pay back money for a loan, now that's not going to happen here because loans are going to be a new sum that we're going to teach you. So if you do regular installments, it could be quarterly, it could be biannually, it could be annually. But normally, normal people have it monthly. Okay. So X is usually your monthly installments, but it's installments, doesn't matter what. Your I and your N, everybody's happy on that, you still know it from forever, is going to be your interest rate, and it depends on the interest rate whether it's done monthly, yearly, biannually, quarterly, whatever the case may be, you're going to change into that. And N then also has to go hand in hand. Now in the sums, and I'm going to show you like that, N and I and X are all going to be hand in hand. You can't have I per month and X installments are 3 monthly. It has to be in the same order. It has to be. Are you with me? If it's monthly, everything is monthly, months. If it's quarterly, quarterly, and amount of quarters. That's crucial for these sums. Right. The only difference comes in, I'm going to start off with a sum like this because I don't want you to feel that this is difficult, because it's not. There's lots of marks to be had in financial maths, lots, for everybody. Especially the kids that are struggling to pass, financial maths is something that you can pass. You can, out of the 12, 13 marks, you can get like 8 or 9 marks. There will be difficult stuff, but in general you'll get the marks for knowing the I and the N and knowing the correct formula to use and filling it in there. When you are doing a future planning, there's one of 3 things that can happen. Normally, you'll go to the bank manager and you'll tell him, listen, I'm opening my bank account here with you. I'm going to start paying in every month, starting at the end of this month. So there's a gap here in the front. If there's a gap there in the front, which is a normal procedure, you open the account and you start paying at the end of that month. Because I decide now in April I want to start saving some money. I'm going to start at the 1st of May, etc. But the sum has to specify. Now, unfortunately, our textbook and some of the papers, they're starting to get more clued up, more finicky, more particular. They have to do the wording very exact, and it sometimes isn't, like the example I'm going to show you today. And then there's lots of talk about it, and we are lenient towards that. They should tell you exactly. What I like is if they say, 1st of January, banks aren't open, but 1st of January, you open your account and you start paying on the 1st of Feb, and you're paying until the 1st of August. Then you can go count exactly how many months there are. But in general, if they say something like in 1 month's time or after 3 months, like I'm going to show you today, there can be an ambiguous situation that you're not so quite sure. Then I'm telling you now, before we even start with this, don't stress about this. The most you can lose on this is 2 marks. In general, it's 1 mark for choosing the one that you shouldn't have chosen. Because these formulas are basically look the same, but there's a little bit of a difference. This is the general one, the basic one, that's on your formula sheet. These two are not on your formula sheet. And the difference is just inside of the sum that I tell you I'm going to start saving and I'm going to put money away, there's something like I say, in 1 month's time I start and I keep on paying until the very last day. That's the norm. That's the normal one. Then your N would be the amount of payments that you're doing. And there's no gap, and that's the formula. The only change in these two is, if there's no gap, that means the question must say, you start paying, the word would be there immediately. Right there on the spot. Nobody would use those words, but immediately they start paying. And they pay until the very last. So say, for instance, with my example, it's from the 1st of Jan until the 31st of December. That would then mean I've actually got 13 months of payment if I immediately pay and pay until the end. Are you with me? And that's why you get an N plus 1 there at the end. Everything is the same, but there's an extra month of payments because you start and you end the 12 months, but you started in the beginning, so in January you paid the 1st of Jan and the 31st of Jan, and then you carried on. Does it make sense? This would be when I say you start paying immediately, but your last installment is, say for instance, the 30th of November, or a month before you are finished with your contract or whatever your arrangement with the bank was. So you've just got to read carefully. Now in that case, it means that you're busy with this situation, but now there's a month of interest that wasn't done. So that month of interest that wasn't done is here. So actually you just have to get 1 month of interest added to that. That's the extra little month of interest that you're adding over here. So please, you are not going into stress about, oh no, I never know which one to use, because if you fail, you're going to get 1 mark deducted. We will always have options because we know what the kids are going to do, where they're going to struggle. And I'm going to show you with the example we're going to do now. If you said a certain answer and you should have said something else, with your answer we will give you like 4 out of 5 marks. Okay, so let's look at exercise 4.4, number 3 in your textbook on page 109. It says, Tabu bought a 14-seater Toyota Quantum taxi for 210,400. The depreciation rate is 12% on a reducing balance. I'm going to read through the question quickly and explain to you the whole scenario. Depreciation rate is, calculate the book value of the taxi. So what's happening to this taxi? The value is value depreciation. That's great. 10 and 11, right? Depreciation. How does depreciation work?
Minus.
Now, which one is it? Because I haven't read that yet, have I? Oh no, I haven't read it, but it's there. Depreciation rate is 12% on a reducing balance. What does that mean? Compound interest. If it was simple interest, what would it have said? Straight line method of depreciation, straight line depreciation. Are you with me? Just read the question. So then in that case, the value of the taxi was 210,400. They told me that the depreciation rate is 12%. Depreciation is never monthly, quarterly, biannually, whatever. Depreciation is always yearly. So that means my I, like always, you would write it as 12%, which is 12 over 100, that's I. If it was quarterly, which value depreciation can't be, you would divide that by 4. Biannually, you would divide that by 2, because biannually means twice in a year. Monthly, divided by 12, but not in this sum because it's depreciation, it's once a year. If you really wanted, you could say over 1. And then the N, because now remember this is per year, and N will be for how many years? After 4 years. So that's per year, that's amount of years. Always go hand in hand. And the answer, please, is?
126,175,90.
I've written it wrong. Comma?
90.
Sorry, it's not written nicely. So it's 126,000. Are you with me? Making sense? That the taxi that was worth over 200,000 is now 120-ish thousand because of value depreciation. How many marks?
1, 2.
No, not 1. There'll be 2, maybe 3. Because it's for depreciation and for the answer. For filling in the right stuff. There's always marks to be had for the I and the N. Very often in these sums, on the memos, when we mark, they say I and N are independent. It doesn't matter if you wrote the wrong thing somewhere else, but your I is right, your N is right, you can get those marks. Are you with me? So make sure you've written something down for me. Second part of the question says, calculate the expected price of a new taxi in 4 years. Calculate the expected price of a taxi in 4 years. It's a little bit vague. I would say, to replace this one, to buy a same one in 4 years, what would be the new value? So that's inflation. So that would mean I take it, and inflation?
Plus 1 plus.
Of which one?
Compound.
Compound. Why?
Inflation.
Because inflation is never simple interest. You should know that. Sometimes you are lucky. You're not lucky in this sum, they never said anything. The inflation rate is. You had to know that it was compound interest. Sometimes you're lucky if they say it's done on the compound interest rate or balance increasing method, something like that. So now, what is P? Still 210. Not this one. This is the old taxi and it's what it's worth in 4 years' time. In 4 years' time, the new one, replacing this one that used to be a new brand spanking new one, 210,000, will then have grown with inflation for 4 years. And inflation rate was 13.5%. So we write?
0.135.
Okay, all 13.5 over 100, but let's all do the same thing, then we're on the same space. Not divided by anything because inflation, thank heavens, is also only annually. Never half yearly, monthly, etc. Answer please.
349,163.
Exactly.
78.
78. Next part of the question says, if Tabu wants to replace the taxi in 4 years' time, evaluate or calculate the amount of money that he will need. Again, very vague to me. I'm sorry about that because that's just the way. In general, financial maths is difficult to set so that it's precise in the wording. I like it precise so that nobody wonders. So in actual fact, what they're saying is, you're going to take the book value of the other one, and you're going to hand it in there at the dealers. They're going to take the taxi. They're going to give you that 126,000 for it. You're going to buy a new one from them for 350,000 almost. But you then need to owe them how much money? So what must you do? Subtract the two from each other. So the 349 minus the 126. And that gives me
22987.88.
Okay, so that's what he has to add towards it. He's given in the old taxi, the scrap value, and he still has to pay the 222,000 in for the new taxi. Are you all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, generally, this is what we call, he has to go now to the bank and start saving for that 220,000. So I don't think he's walking around with 220,000 in his pocket saying, okay, well, here it is. So he's going to start planning, knowing I'm starting here with a new taxi. I know it's going to depreciate. I know this is what I'm going to have to pay. I know this is what I'm going to be short. So what does he have to do? He has to start saving for the future. So that future one that I'm going to be saving for is, okay, then we get into these sums. Now generally, this is what we call a,
Sinking fund.
now guys, we don't really know that name, it's not a major issue, but just somewhere it might be written and then you think, what the heck's going on here? A sinking fund is when you go and you make this account so that you can start saving toward it. It's a fund, like your own account that you're funding towards. Are you with me? Just the word sinking fund. And the difference is what you need to save for. So then we need to go to our sum and say. Now the next part of the question, I'm going to erase this just now once we've decided how to do it. The next part of it then says, Tabo now sets up a sinking fund. So now it's there in the sum and you know what it's all about. So he's got to get this account going. He plans to save 240,000. So my sum that I've written there is wrong. They have helped me. If I was off the wagon here, they're now telling me I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to save 222,000. He says I want to save 240,000. That's what he says. So now that helps. If that was wrong of your guys, everybody will now start with 240,000. So that's what he's aiming towards. He sets it up by making equal monthly installments. Guys, you can go through your exam aid. 99% of the sums is always monthly. But that's not to say you can't get a weekly and a biannually quarterly sum. He sets up equal monthly accounts. Calculate his monthly deposits. Tell him, listen Tabo, this is what you should put in so that the account will accumulate to that. Can't I then just say for 4 years, how many times does he then have to pay? 48 times. Can't I just say 240 divided by 48?
No.
Why not?
Because he doesn't exist.
Why not? Because there's interest. That first amount that he pays in whatever it is, 5,000 rand, is not going to be 5,000 after the second month. It's going to be 5,000 and something. Then you add another 5,000. So at the end of that next month, that 10,000 and something has become more even than that. And that's interest upon interest upon interest. That's why you can't just say, take that and divide it by 48 and then you'll have the money. He'll have much more because of interest, unless the bank's not doing what they should be doing. He's giving him interest on that money. Now, so in other words, now the question here comes that says, his first deposit is made after 3 months. Now guys, I don't like the sum, and I'm going to stick to the 46 that was used, okay, in the memo, because then I have to say, I would have rather than said, he starts on the 3rd month. So in other words, I would have liked it if they said 1 January, 1 February, 1 March, 1 April. His first payment is made on 1 April. Then nobody had a problem. I have a problem with the way that they set this out. So if he says they pays on 3 months later, so this was the first month, there was the first payment I could have made, because now remember, I'm trying to always work with the gap in the front, the normal one. Then we'll see how it develops. So if this was where we started, we opened the account. He didn't pay the first month, he didn't pay the second month, he paid on the third month. There's his first payment. Then you can do a few different things. You can go and work with this one that doesn't have a gap, or you can work with this one that does have a gap. You can decide. If you do have the gap, then where is the gap? That one is the gap. And it goes up to where? How many months? the 4 years, right? Which is 48 months. Now, if a guy went blank, blindfolded, wrote this down, found the X, put the F there as 240,000, wrote there in the ends place 48, because I can tell you now that a lot of kids would have, and the I was whatever they said now for the I, you would have gotten 4 out of 5. So I'm telling you now to stop stressing and chewing on your wrist for suicide, because it's only going to mean 1 mark if you do make the wrong choice. Are you with me here? I'm trying to set you a little bit at ease, otherwise it could be a stressful situation. Okay, but obviously it's not 48. If you then work it with this and they say that he pays after 3 months, on the 3rd month, however they said it, with the months I would have said 1 April, then I would have known exactly. So keeping it to, there's the gap in the front. Then I would go for my F answer, this one, gap in the front. Then what is my N if this is the gap in the front?
46.
Then the N is?
46.
46. Because this should have been the first payment, second payment, third payment, etc. up to 48. So he didn't pay the first, he didn't pay the second, he's paying the third, so N is 46, right? Other kids at least recognize that there's 3 months. So what do? 48 minus 3 is 45. If they go work with a 45 in this formula, it's wrong. But they won't lose the marks, they'll lose 1. If they went to this one, and they said, no gap, no gap. Where's no gap here? There's the payment until the end. That's 45, right? But then if you use this one, it's going to be, which is the same one that is the correct one. Are you with me? So you have a choice. You can assume it like there's a gap in the front, and I would like to actually brainwash you to always try and work with the normal one with the gap there in the front. But you had a choice here. But whichever one you chose, with the gap, saying that N is 46. With no gap, assuming that it's the immediate installment on the 3rd month up to the end, that would mean that there's 45 plus 1, which is in any case going to be 46. Then they're going to look exactly the same. So the correct thing will be this formula with 46, or this formula will also be 45 plus 1, which is 46, but not this one. Are you with me? Long explanation for that. In essence, if you made a mistake, it's going to be in 1 mark, and the rest will be followed up with you. We even have 4 or 5 different memos. If you did this, what would be the answer? If you did this, what would be the answer? Okay, not if you said 36. You're off the wagon now. Then you're not going to follow through. You'd still get your I and your N, and you'd your I and your F mark for substituting into the grade 12 formulas. You won't get nothing, but you will not get followed up in an illogical way. All right, so let's see how the sum works then. Going back here then. In our sum, if our X is then the unknown, our F is 240,000, our I was 12%. So it's a 12% interest per annum, but it's done monthly, so it's divided by 12 for per month. Are you with me? Per month. It's 12% per annum, so it's 12% per year, but divide by 12 to get per month. X is also per month. So your N should also be in
Per month.
Are you seeing this? Everything is in the same unit. Make sure that that is the case. Now, the story about the story is, did you get the right N? If not, 4 out of 5. If yes, 5 out of 5. So please do not stress too much about it. So now let's think about it again. So if this was 48, but here we started on month number 3, that meant that I had, this is month number 3. So there was first payment not done, second payment not done, there I pay. So with the gap, how many months are there from 2? That would mean another example. One guy said 45, one guy said 46 plus 1. Can you imagine somebody doing that? Getting to 46 maybe, but then saying plus 1. So we'd have all of those as our memo, and you would get marks. So your N would be either right or wrong. If it's wrong, 4 out of 5. If it's right, 5 out of 5. Are you getting comfortable with this? Okay, because it's tricky. It feels like we're wanting to trick you. So if we have our formula, I like to try and stick to the normal one with a gap there. So my X is the one I'm looking for. My I is, now guys, isn't that 0,1? Yes, but please don't write that. Can I brainwash you all to do the same? Show the marker, then I can also see when I mark your papers what you're doing wrong. Because now sometimes you divide by 4 when you should be dividing by 6, and then your answer is 0, whatever, and I don't know what you did. But if you show me that you've got the 0,12, you're dividing by 6, then I can say, oh, see what you did wrong. You're saying so there's 6 months in a year or whatever. Show them. Okay? Is it wrong to write 0,1? No, I'm helping you here. And our N now, that's the big question. And then 0,12 over 12. Now I don't have enough space here, I'm going to carry on here. So, do I need to show them all my steps? No. You can just tell me X is per, because it's an installment. Now guys, the trick there, or the technique there, is all about, technique. All about knowing how to work with this. And there's a lot of ways. Some kids like to show me step by step by step. Just be careful, because if you round off too much, it's going to be inaccurate. They do have leniency. They're not going to, if your answer should be 23 Rand, 02, and you say 03, they're going to mark it wrong. They won't. Are you with me? But we try and keep it as accurate as possible. So the question is how to do the sum. So I would say, for myself, if I've got to get rid of this all here, can I not then go and work out that whole thing as I've encircled it there?
Yes.
Work out that whole thing. Keep it in the calculator and say 240,000 divided by answer. Because it's this answer. Just be careful that you don't say this divided by 240,000, because that's wrong. It must be 240,000 divided by this. Another way, 240,000 first of all times with that bracket, that fraction. Then answer divided by, then you've got to just use your brackets all together. So bracket, 1 plus la la la, bracket, expect. And what is the answer, please?
4134,66
per month, and that's the end of the story. But to get there, you want it. You must sit with your calculator and make sure that you can get this done. Some kids like to first say 0,1, then this is 1,1, then to the power 46 is wada, then plus minus the 1 is whatever, then divide that by this, get an answer, so you've got a whole big bracket, answer of 0, whatever, divided by x, and divide this in here, and get to that answer. I don't have a problem if you have a few more steps in there, but you have to show me the steps. You have to just show me the answers, you don't have to show me the steps. Number 4. Said, she's Marco, I think, decided to pay 500 Rand every 3 months. And he's starting immediately. He's going to do this annuity. His arrangement with the bank or the annuity place is that he has to pay it for 10 years because they're giving him good interest, etc. The interest is 14%, but it has to be done quarterly because the payments are done quarterly. Now, first of all, quarterly, am I right? Because he's paying every 3 months. How many 3 months are there? So it is quarterly, are you with me? So it's 500 Rand every 3 months, in other words, per quarter. So X is 500 per quarter. Your N, this is the big question, the big major upset, is he's starting immediately, they say. They never said exactly what's going on at the end there, but if they wanted you to pay from first day and stopped 3 months before the end, they would have had to say that. So we're assuming, and hopefully it will be much more clear-cut put to you in the test, that he's paying 500 Rand every 3 months until the end. So that means on the 10th year, you're still going to pay that last 500 Rand. That means I don't have a gap. That means which formula? If there's no gap, which formula?
The second one with the plus
Okay,
one.
with the
Plus one.
N plus 1. And why is that, guys? Because if you understand why it is, it makes sense. Let me explain it to you this way. If I say you're paying for 12 months, from 1st of January to this 31st of December, 12 months, and you're paying end of every month, obviously there's 12 payments. But if I say pay immediately and pay until the end, how many times are you paying in a year? 30.
Extra.
That's why there's one extra payment there. That's why it is, if there's no gap, that you add another one. Whether it's monthly or quarterly or whatever, there's one extra month or quarter, etc. So your N for the 10 years will be 10 years is how many quarters? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if N is 40, then you're going to have here 41. Okay? And your I, I've already written it there, is per quarter as well. So the I is per quarter, the N is per quarter, the X is per quarter. This is the amount of months. When you fill it in here, it's going to be 41. The rest is easy because it's calculated, that's it. The main problem, headache, was getting the right formula, and if you wrote that formula, you're actually not quite right, but you would get your mark for your I and your N, and working with your incorrect answer correctly, you would get 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 4, depending on how many marks they gave to you. So this time the question was, what is the annuity worth after 10 years when you get to them and say pay it out? So at the end of that time, what is it worth? So we have 500 Rand per quarter. Speak to yourself. You're not crazy in maths if you speak to yourself. So this is per quarter. This is per quarter. This is the amount of quarters, so it's actually 41. Now you can write 40 plus 1, it's fine. But the thing is, you've paid 41 times. That's what it's about. And then put minus the 1 over the I, which is still. And we've got an answer, please, of
254,77.
Got here?
77.
77.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, and we round off with money. 100%? 44,000 after 10 years from paying 500 Rand a month. Was it worth it? Let's just think about the logic of this. Nobody asked me for it, but how much money did I put in here? How much did I pay in? Oh. 20,000? So did I make something? It's worth it. The annuity. Get your money saving as soon as you can, guys. So if I did ask you that, how much interest did he earn? You would have had to say that and say, so the interest was what? 442 minus 20. And that is?
23754,77.
Much more than what I put in. That's what I like, because they gave me a nice interest rate. Right. So we're going to be doing number 5 and 6 now.